Good day, and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Bridges. In each episode, I cover my experiences, both good and bad, of being a business builder, as well as my journey through the crazy world of entrepreneurship to reach my goal of earning $10 million a year. Welcome to podcast episode number 148. Today is May the 17th of 2024. We are about ready to kind of turn the page on this month, so this will be good. We'll be getting into the last month of the quarter and also the first half of the year. I want to welcome you and hope everything is going well for you today. We're going to be diving in today with some business strategies left over from some of the things we talked about last week and the week before. For right now, we're still looking at our sources as revisiting the $100 million leads. Now, I've been bouncing back and forth between that and with the $100 million offers because there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that are in both books. They work very well together. They're both by Alex Hormozi. So if you haven't heard of him, he's a rather unique character on the internet. So get out there. He's got a great set of videos on YouTube. He's got his books. He's pretty much omnipresent everywhere. Also this week, the NEPQ Black Book. I spent some time working on that for dealing with questions, building out my call scripts a little bit tighter. And this is by Jeremy Miner. Looking at my video channels, again, this is sources, so we're going to kind of cover a little broader view. Sabri Subi put out some really good ideas this past week, and I was very happy to see those. Vindy Steinberga is working very hard on the LinkedIn process. She's now doing a video a day, which is unique. There's a lot of information in it. And so if you haven't heard her before or haven't heard Sabri Subi, his last name is Suby, it's worth your time to get out there and take a look at them for all the things that they do. This week's quote is going to be from Alex Hormozi. And this is something that was interesting. I saw this in a video that he did. There's a lot of new stuff that he's putting out. He's kind of toned down his raw kind of mechanism that he does with everything for his videos. But he said something that I thought that a lot of people, and it's relevant to the topic we're dealing with today. He said, people want value per second, not seconds of value. The fact that you might want to bill by time is a good idea. You can do that if you really want. But as we'll be talking about, that is not the most effective way to either grow your business, your practice, whatever you have. And it may not also be the most strategic for you to be able to get out of your business and let your business, run with the people that are in it. And definitely, this is something that as you get better at being in business, you're going to have to pass off some of this to other people, and they're going to have to make mistakes, and you're going to have to live with those mistakes. Today, we're digging in for our business strategies of the value-based pricing. We talked about previously, there are 5 types of value-based pricing. Basically, this is looking at perceived value is the first one. It's the definition and application of setting prices based on the customer's perception of the product or service's worth. Usually perceived value pricing is very valuable among collectors. The second one is performance-based pricing, where price is determined by the performance or results that are achieved by the product or service. The third one is outcome-based pricing, which is similar to range pricing we'll be discussing, but the customer's pay is based on the outcomes or benefits they receive from using a product or service. Tiered pricing is you have different price tiers based on varying levels of features, benefits, and usage limits. This is very common among IT providers. The tiered pricing, you'll have a bronze, silver, gold, platinum plans. And each one is progressively more expensive, provides more value, and covers a broader range of information. Range pricing, which is my personal preference, is the price is based on the difference between the current and the desired state. So if somebody is losing $30,000 a month and they want to get to $70,000 plus, then that's a difference of $100,000. And I usually ask for a percentage of that difference. That way, we're making a big difference. Now, maybe they are only making $10,000 and they want to make $30,000. Okay, well, that's only a difference of $20,000. So, might take a higher percentage of that price. It's usually based on the risk to the provider. That percentage is really, it's flexible. It's probably the most flexible of them all, because it's hard for the client or the prospect to say, that's not what I want. And it's hard to say, that's not what I have. That's our 5 types. We did benefits and implementation. This week, we're going to talk about some examples and some cases. And I want to use a fictional, I've changed the name of this company, but it's a digital marketing agency. They're going to be our first scenario. Next week, we're going to cover 2 more that are service-based businesses. Product-based is very difficult to make value-based pricing because you have widgets that you make. This is not widget-based. Okay, so giving you a quick background, we're going to call it ABC Digital Marketing, right? They're an agency specializing in digital marketing services for small and medium-sized businesses. They offer a range of services, including SEO, search engine optimization, social media management, content creation, and pay-per-click advertising. Now, in this particular case, this company was billing clients on an hourly basis, right? And there were a lot of challenges because did you actually spend 3 hours that you billed me for doing this? And a lot of times they'll ask what you did, and it becomes a problem when you start arguing with your client on what time you spent on a project. And it leads to challenges in accurately estimating what a project is going to cost and then aligning that with the client expectations. In their case, and I talked with them about this, they wanted to move to a more sustainable and profitable pricing model, right? So they went with value-based fees. Now, to quickly go over this for you, the challenges they faced was obviously the difficulty in conveying the value of their services beyond the time spent. But notice that in 1 or 2 or even 3 of the different types, it's not a question of time being spent. The value is based upon differences, right? Whether they see it as being their own, whether they see it's performance-based, outcome-based, and range-based. Those are all 3 ones that are value specific. They really can get a lot of value for this. And so another challenge was that they were getting inconsistent revenue streams because project durations would fluctuate. I mean, when a project is not as profitable for you, you tend to put it on a little bit slower time frame. You have to. It's just not profitable at that rate of high speed. And also then the clients were solely focused on the number of hours worked. It didn't matter what results they got because the pricing really didn't matter to them. Now, I'm going to talk about how we did their strategy. And there were 4 points. We conducted in-depth client consultations with their clients, right? And we really wanted to understand the business objectives and the pain points of the client and be able to map those into doing value-based pricing. Keep in mind, you don't want to do everything value-based pricing. There's just certain types of projects, certain types of initiatives that can't handle that, right? Another thing is we started doing comprehensive service packages. To a point, we unbundled some things, and for others, we bundled more together to get better value so we could get a better outcome for the client. And especially when it was tailored to the client's needs and goals, sometimes the client can't afford an all-in-one package. They can't take that huge package for them. And so they have to break it down, and maybe you break your project into pieces. That allows you to focus individually, and then you can see the value over a longer period of time so the client isn't out as much money. Another thing to bring in is key performance indicators. What is performance created by? How is it created and where? How much money you make or how much money you save is a lagging indicator. It's what happens after the project is done and you're starting to see returns on it. If you have KPIs up front, like how many calls did you make or how many did you complete as you set an appointment, how many showed? These are important KPIs. And so you want to look at the success of your campaigns, and then all of this, you have to put regular progress in place, especially reporting. You've got to know, because if you don't have good reporting, what happens is you're just a black hole. That's not good. Clients don't like that. They get nervous when they can't get a feedback from you. What this all turned out to be is there are some outcomes, but first, I want to really go through a step-by-step process. We'll talk about the outcomes in a minute, but I think you'll understand that, first of all, this wasn't a single piece that we put together. We had to go through this essentially over a 14-week period, plus ongoing after that. I'll talk in more depth about that, but really understanding that this is a process. You're converting to a process. Now, looking at the digital agency outcomes, they definitely increase their client satisfaction, right? Is looking at the value of what they did rather than just the time spent. Time spent does not equal, as Alex said, people want value per second, not seconds of value. When you're dealing with high impact people, they want to get results. And the faster they can get those results, the better, right? Another outcome was the revenue stability. We worked with them looking at how the pricing would go for certain types of projects that they were doing. And we wanted to get predictable monthly retainers based on value provided, right? And they were working off of something of a retainer process. They basically broke the project up into 3 different pieces and then billed half upfront, and then at the halfway point they billed 1 quarter, and then at the end of the project they billed the final quarter. Then we went into the management side of things, looking at that. And so it was almost like a retainer process, and you have to float that money so that you can make sure you can pay for your project to be completed. And also another area was client relationships suddenly became built on trust and transparency. If they can trust you to do what you say, and you're transparent according to what you're doing, and that's where, having more information up front as you go, that transparency is going to make a big deal. And it also allowed them to expand their client base through referrals, because satisfied clients are, as you can imagine, always the best word of mouth for you. And so since this is a results-driven approach, it becomes much easier. I know when I first went to value-based pricing back in the IT world, it was unique. There was a lot of people that were resistant to it. And I had one person I really wanted to focus on, and I think I've told this story before, but it's relevant here definitely, is I was doing reinstalls, and I told her it's $675 for a reinstall. And it's just here's what we're going to do. Here's the software we're going to put on. We're going to put it on there. It's $675, period. And so she agreed to do it. We came in got it halfway through. I was doing the install myself, and halfway through it, I had to take a phone call. So I went outside and I made my phone call and had it, came back in, and I see her look up at the clock to see how long I've been gone, right? And I just kind of looked at her. I said, "Were you looking at the clock?" She said, "Yes." I said, "You don't have to do that anymore." And the look of relaxation that came over her face was like, "Oh, okay." Because it didn't matter how long I spent outside. The clock was not ticking. We always said that the process of value-based fees was eliminating the clock. And so, that's a big deal. And so when you're doing this, it's kind of important to realize what's the true value to the person across the table from you. We talked about the example and we went through the scenario. We've got the challenges, the transition, and the outcomes. But now I want to actually talk about the entire process of moving from fixed fee or per diem. Per diem is by block or by day, and moving to a value-based environment. And with that digital marketing agency, we wanted it to be outcome-based. We wanted people to see the difference. So the first step of making this transition, and this was the first couple of weeks, was inside of our client, the digital marketing agency, we had to conduct internal training sessions. We need to explain to these people about the benefits and principles of a value-based pricing model. And we wanted to align their understanding with the agency's goals and objectives. As people are doing their job, they want to be able to do them the best that they can. But when you can align with the company's, or in this case, an agency's goals and objectives, you're a lot better off. In fact, when you're interviewing, here's a tip, and this one was kind of pointed out by several people. When you talk about somebody and you're interviewing them and you ask them what they're going to do for the company or what they think they're going to do for the job, listen to see if they are giving you tasks or if they are aligning to company goals and objectives. Now, they're going to have to ask questions, but what are they measuring? Are they actually doing something that's going to make a difference for the company or not? Okay, so a little helpful hint there for you. And definitely, in part of all of this, you have to discuss the transition plan and address any questions or concerns from team members. Sometimes people are not mentally built to be in a value-based pricing company. They're too built into how many hours I work. They're too built into how much I get paid per hour. Now, a lot of times I'm looking at, I want the stability of the company, so I want to be able to address that when I'm dealing with their employees and helping them to deal with it. The second step of making this transition is now you start working with their client consultations and need assessments. And this is usually weeks 3 and 4. You want to start scheduling meetings with their existing clients, or if they are your client, to discuss their business objectives, their pain points, and their desired outcomes. We're going to essentially go back to being the doctor, because we're going to change how things are going to work for these clients. So we need to make sure that this is a client that, number 1, can change, number 2, will change, and when you ask them to do it and they have to actually do something, that they actually go through it. It's 3 of the 4 pillars of my red velvet rope principle. You also want to explore the potential value that additional services can deliver, because sometimes you're going to uncover needs you didn't know. And so you want to be able to address those, because if you can put them into a value-based program and it's more expensive, the client can see that. They can see how that difference is going to work. Okay? So that's weeks 3 and 4. Step 3, now we're going to start doing service package development. And this is roughly another 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to look at client consultations, the notes we took from them. We're going to develop customized service packages tailored to address those specific objectives and outcomes of the client. We want to define deliverables, clear ones and clean. They can't be relevant to something else. They have to be clean. This is the only thing that you're concerned with. And we're building key performance indicators and success metrics. Then we want to calculate the estimated value of the services provided based on the anticipated impact on the client business. Impact. Impact is a very important part of this, because if it doesn't really do much for your client, you're going to have a hard time making a transition for them and making the argument that this is the way to go. Step 4 is pricing structure definition. Again, another roughly 2 weeks. We want to look at each service package and think of it in terms of tiers. A lot of times I will look at a client and I'll give them 3 choices. There's an A package, it's the cheapest. A B package, it's slightly more expensive, but there's more value to it. And a C package is the most expensive, but provides the greatest value to the client. And a lot of times when you do this, you're getting better answers, because when you're looking at these pricing structures, you're able to anticipate and even ask in advance, what would you think if this package cost X? We also want to look at different pricing options. Are you going to be willing to put it like we did with retainer fashion, where we take some up front and then build throughout the rest of it? Are we going to look at project-based fees, where we're looking at it every week and we're going to break it down every week through that process? It's still a value-based price. We're looking at needs and budgets. We want to ensure transparency and clarity in our pricing communication. We don't want people going, well, what do I get for this? Well, that's in the value. You've got that clearly spelled out up front. So pricing structure definition is step 4. Step 5 is client communication and proposal presentation. There's certain things with a proposal, you can put pieces in it, but if you're not careful, you might run into different states and counties have different ways of looking at words. And if you put the words shall or must, you might actually be running afoul of contract language. And that could be really not a good thing for you. So you want to definitely schedule meetings with clients. Look at the proposed service packages and pricing structures. Don't put them together. Do not link the package and the price. The package is upfront. They tell you which package they're interested in. Then at the back of the proposal, I recommend that people put the pricing back there, and the person simply marks an X on it of which one they want and sign at the bottom. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's a proposal, right? We want to be able to communicate the value prop and how they align with client objectives, and then address any questions or concerns raised by clients, get clarification or information as we need, because the proposal process is a process. You don't just lay a proposal on the table and that's the end of it. It's going to have to be looked at by more than one person. It's just the way that it is. So that's step 5. Step 6 is now you're going to do a pilot implementation. And we want to collect feedback, usually another couple of weeks on this, right? We only want a few clients to participate in a pilot implementation. Maybe you treat it as, I just want 5 clients to do this, and you've got 30. Now, if you only have 5, 1 might be sufficient here to get some information, but you definitely want to try to get more if you can. You want to monitor the progress. How are things working? Are the metrics actually working for you? Is the client happy as a result of what's going on here? You're going to go through, get your feedback. Step 7 is refinement and full implementation. This is weeks 13 and 14, so generally every 2 weeks. And you want to look at this and start making tweaks and adjustments, because when you do proposals and you do agreements as opposed to contracts, agreements can be stacked and don't necessarily have to be signed off by a stakeholder in the company, whereas contracts almost always do. They're going to get legal to check it over. They're going to look at it really carefully. Looking at your refinement and your full implementation, this is when you actually put an agreement on the table to continue. Okay, so you've gone through your pilot phase, you've made the adjustments. Now you're looking at the transition to value-based pricing for all future-based clients on that particular type of project. You want to get consistency, and you want to align it with, in this case, an agency's client needs and objectives. And then as you communicate this, you slowly roll over to a value-based pricing for as many as you can. Probably not all of them. Okay, it depends on who your target market is. And we'll get into that next week, looking at a law firm. We're going to be looking at how a law firm might do this. We'll cover another company as well. And finally, step 8 is an ongoing process. This is monitoring and optimization. If a client isn't happy with something, you can come back and make adjustments to it. I mean, it's an agreement, right? Or it's a proposal. Maybe you have found other things that you need to put in there. That happens a lot. So you can stack agreements one on top of another to get customized service. I did this with an IT process that I had at one point. I had a company that had technicians working during the night. It had office people working during the day, and doctors that were working around the clock in an intermittent fashion. Each of these needed its own specific agreement because the needs of the technicians were far different. So this ongoing monitoring and optimization is key. You want to make sure you're getting new ideas if you can. Regularly review and update what you have, because your pricing may change. The market may change. In a world that is as crazy as we're dealing with right now in terms of recessions and whoever you talk to financially, this may make a difference. If you haven't made a choice, something may change and you find that, well, technology has changed without you, and now you are actually behind the curve on getting it done. So this is a real kind of a deep dive into this process. I wanted to give you a scenario first so you really understood kind of how a process goes, and then the actual transition style of making this all happen. So we covered our sources today, revisiting $100 million leads, NEPQ Black Book, and then video channels by Sabri Subi and Vindy Steinberga. Alex Hormozzi's People Want Value Per Second, not seconds of value. And as you can see, that works very well with our value-based pricing examples and something of a case study here. We're going to wrap this up. I wish you the best in your health, your wealth, your business, your family, everything about you. Take care. We'll be back next week. Take a look at a couple more cases. The next week will definitely be shorter. All right. See you then.